Coming up on the Angus Report, increasing producers' bottom lines and how technology can help.
If you look at the technologies that we use, particularly growth promotants, it saves the amount of feed for the pounds of beef we produce. It saves water. It saves the land we are required to grow beef.
Oklahoma State University releases its latest food demand survey. See what consumers are spending their money on. How cattlemen can work with consumers to build their trust and answer their questions.
Consumers want to know what they're eating more and more. They're not just buying beef. They want to know, is it local produce? Is it antibiotic-free produce? Can I trust my farmer?
What's on your calves resume this fall and how Angus Source can help. And we look back on this day in history and thank the people who truly make the U.S. the land of the free and the home of the brave. This is the Angus Report. Hello and welcome to the Angus Report. I'm Bob Cervera. Our top news this week. As fall weaning approaches, many cattlemen and women will take the chance to precondition calves for 45 to 60 days, if not longer, prior to sending them to a feedlot or stocker operation. During this time, it's vital to producers' bottom line to ensure sufficient daily gains in order to offset the cost it takes to precondition calves. John Hutchison of Merck Animal Health says one way producers can optimize rate of gain and increase pounds on the truck is through various growth promotant technologies.
We talk about maximizing growth. One of the greatest technologies that we have from an animal health standpoint is putting a row grow implant in those suckling calves when they're, at weaning or at branding time or weaning time if they're going to stay on the farm or the ranch as it relates to giving us 20, 25 pounds of extra growth. So as we talk about the use of growth promoting technologies in cattle production, one of the things that I always like to remind people is they've been available and used for over 40 years. And that use is safe, and FDA, they go through rigorous protocols to get these products approved, and they allow us to be able to use these type of technologies to make us more sustainable in cattle production. If you look at the technologies that we use, particularly growth promotants, it saves the amount of feed for the pounds of beef we produce. It saves water. It saves the land we are required to grow beef. We've got the most ability to use technologies to fit the markets that we need to fit, and it allows us to produce more beef than we ever have with less resources than we ever have, and that's sustainable beef production.
Talk with your veterinarian to plan your preconditioning program prior to weaning. Oklahoma State University recently released its latest findings from its food demand survey, which tracks consumer preferences and views on food safety, quality, and price of food with a focus on meat demand. Consumer willingness to pay increased on chicken breasts, pork chops, and chicken wings. However, it decreased on steak, hamburger, and deli ham. From July to August, consumers' willingness to pay for chicken breasts rose 5%, rose 11% on pork chops, and 2% on chicken wings. Steak decreased 6%, hamburger dropped 4%, and deli ham fell more than 17%. Overall willingness to pay for all meat products is lower than 1 year ago. However, expenditures on food eaten at home has increased 1.25% from July to August. Expenditures on food purchased away from home only increased slightly, and consumers are planning to dine out more this month. Visit dasnr.okstate.edu for more information on the survey. Not only do consumers want a great steak every time, they're also asking how that calf was raised, what it was fed, and where it came from. Johan de Mühlemeister is a business development manager for Allflex and says winning consumer trust goes back to providing traceable information on each animal.
Consumers want to know what they're eating more and more. They're not just buying beef. They want to know, is it local produce? Is it antibiotic-free produce? Can I trust my farmer? They've lost trust in the bigger chains due to some scandals, mainly in Europe. Through new technologies, farmers can, for a very affordable price, can accommodate that need. Practically, it's actually very simple. The farmer just from the start when the animal is born, they just take a sample, a tissue sample, that is stored in a preservative liquid so that the DNA in that sample is actually very intact. That sample can serve, and in Europe that's done for BVD eradication, bovine viral diarrhea eradication plans. They use a part of that sample, but the remainder of that sample can actually be used for DNA purposes. And at a certain point in time, if a consumer can take a piece of meat and say, okay, I want to be reassured that this is meat coming from your animals, then the sample that is taken at birth from that animal can be matched or dismatched with that piece of meat sample. And that's, you have 100% match, then it's the same animal. If there's a mismatch in a certain amount of DNA markers, then it's from another animal. So that's a very simple test. And cost efficient, because you're not analyzing DNA on every single calf you're sampling, you're just doing it as an audit system.
De Meulemeester was a featured speaker at this year's World Angus Forum in Scotland. Visit worldangusforum2017.com for more information. Across the country, many ranchers are looking at their hayfields wondering whether it's worth getting one last cutting in before fall. Forage management professor at Penn State University Marvin Hall says a good rule of thumb is not to harvest alfalfa within 6 weeks of the first killing frost. He says cutting closer to the first frost depletes the plant's sugars and carbohydrates, which sends the plant into winter with a lower surplus. That then makes it difficult for plants to begin vigorous growth in the spring. Whether deciding to cut late or not, Hall says making sure the plant has adequate levels of potassium the following spring is crucial to the survival and overall production the following year. Ultimately, Hall says producers should look at the current stockpile of hay and estimate the total amount needed to feed cattle throughout the winter months prior to deciding whether that last cutting is really worth it. Since harvested feed during the winter is the most expensive aspect of raising beef cattle, having the ability to extend the grazing season can reduce production costs. Range and forage specialist at the University of Nebraska, Jerry Volesky, says stockpiling pastures for winter grazing or only lightly grazing pastures in the summer can help extend a herd's time off the feed bill. After the first major frost, both warm and cool season grasses can be grazed quite aggressively. By waiting until after the frost, grasses enter dormancy, and therefore cattle will not set the plant back the following spring. Beef extension specialist John Hall also says by stockpiling pastures, producers could also implement strip grazing practices. By strip grazing with high stocking rates, cattle can consume large amounts of plant biomass that would normally be overlooked. You can learn more on extended grazing season practices in the August edition of the Angus Journal. In order to ensure the next generation of commercial cattle producers are well equipped with the knowledge and tools to become successful, the American Angus Association and Allflex USA encourage young cattle producers to apply for the Future Angus Stockman Scholarship. The scholarship program is aimed toward college-age students or recent graduates who are willing to learn about utilizing EPDs, incorporating DNA technology to make data-driven decisions, and work to develop record-keeping plans utilizing Beef Record Service or Maternal Plus. The $1,000 scholarship will go to one recipient who must be enrolled in the Future Angus Stockman program. Scott Holt serves as the North American Marketing Manager for Allflex USA and says the program's goal is to recognize the efforts of a young producer and to help them improve their Angus program. Scholarship applications can be found online at angus.org and are due this Friday, September 15th. The scholarship will be presented at this year's Angus Convention in Fort Worth, Texas. And leading the way in scholarships and research funding here at home is the Angus Foundation. A large part of fundraising comes from the Foundation's donation heifer that's sold at the National Western Stock Show each year. This year, Jim Coleman of Vintage Angus Ranch is graciously donating this year's Foundation heifer. The featured female is a February 2017 heifer out of Blackbird 1809 and is sired by VAR Discovery 2240, one of the most sought-after sires in the Angus breed today that's known for light birth weights and exceptional growth. Stay tuned for more information on this elite female and plan to attend this year's National Western Angus Bull Sale, January 10th, 2018. When we return, ways to build buyer trust when marketing your calves and how Angus Source can help. Then we remember the people who serve and have served our country, giving us our freedom, home, on the ranch. Visit angus.media to continue watching this episode of the Angus Report.
Forward. It's more than a direction. It's mandatory, because the beef business rewards the progressive, the doers, the ones who know what it takes to go easy on cattle and never set them back. So set your eyes on the horizon, turn your back to the wind, and move your herd the only way you know. Forward. Vista Vaccines. Always ahead.
Today's beef consumer has questions. BQA has the answers. Your Beef Quality Assurance certification allows you to share a story that assures customers that you are responsibly raising a safe, wholesome, and healthy beef supply. Becoming BQA certified just became even more convenient with a new interactive training experience that is online and available 24/7. So what are you waiting for? Get started today by visiting bqa.org.
Hi, I'm Red Stegall. I'd like to invite you to the 2017 Angus Convention, November 4th through the 6th, right here in historic Fort Worth. It's also open to all cattle producers, whether you own Angus cattle or not. Now you'll enjoy 4 days of Texas hospitality, a ranch tour, an industry-leading trade show, and some of the best educational opportunities in the business. But best of all, you'll get to be with your Angus family, celebrating the successes of the breed and charting a course for the future.
Did you know that your checkoff works to grow demand for U.S. beef in more than 80 countries? Did you know export markets add more than $250 in value to each head? Did you know your checkoff works to develop, defend, and dispel in an effort to expand international markets? While you're focused on managing your beef business, your checkoff is developing new foreign markets and defending those where U.S. beef is currently sold. Get to know your checkoff at mybeefcheckoff.com.